Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to talk to you about the typical team structure you can get in a project. You can have all these kinds of different teams, and I'm going to really break it down to you so you exactly know what to expect. So specifically, for example, I mentioned in my staffing model video on that you can have different companies or different people or different countries all in the same project. What a team can really be made of is that you can have actual multiple consulting companies. Hi, Beard! Hey! So when it comes to a project team structure, you may actually have multiple consulting companies in the same exact team. So let's say, for example, Workday has a project that is specifically called Workday Primed, which means that they started it and they do have that project. You may actually have a project where you're going to be in the same exact team with them. So in this case, it would be two consulting firms. However, the client may even want to bring in independent consultants for their end. In this case, they would be consultants for the client, but they also will be working with you. So you could be working with different kinds of companies and resources. And especially if you're like working in a big platform implementation, like let's say, for example, Accenture focuses on Salesforce, but maybe they're using a different company to focus on like a different part of like what they want to do in their business transformation. You'll also be having the client's IT team working together with you. So like maybe your project manager is actually someone on the client team. It really depends on the type of project that you go for because it really depends on the structure as well. The other thing that you also have to be aware of is that there's something called offshore resources, and when it comes to like bigger international companies, this is a lot more prevalent. So let's say, for example, for the Big Four, Big Three, Accenture, they're big global companies. It may be that they do have a specific area in India that is like specializing in this area, or maybe somewhere in Japan that they do want to work with the team in Japan for the client. You can have different resources from all over the country, or even doing things while you're going to sleep. You may also have different sizes of the team. Like I've actually been on a team where it's only like 4 people, and meanwhile I also do know people who've been on projects of like over 200 people. You don't know exactly who's on the team at that point, but like this is where it gets a lot more segmented, where like you get like multiple teams broken down, or you could have one team doing everything, or even one person doing everything. So for example, one of my projects right now, I'm actually the only person doing the functional side of finance, and I'm working with the integrations team. So I'm the one person that is doing all this. I'm actually going to be talking about this in a different video in terms of the types of projects that you may have, because this actually can dictate what kind of work you'll be doing and even what kind of team structure that you may have as well. So let's break down in terms of like who would make this team. And the first thing that we're going to have is the engagement manager, or the delivery lead, or whatever you call it out there. This is the role that actually secured that sale. So from the very beginning, when they actually have to go pitch a sale to a client, they do have this person that's like an engagement manager that actually tries to work with you and really try to kind of sell the project to them. So this engagement manager is typically the person that goes from the very beginning. They're actually the ones doing sales pitches to the actual client to say that the company should be the consultants for the actual project. So this engagement manager may be working with also the statement of work, which is also called this SOW. The SOW is supposed to be mentioning specifically the scope, the resources, the time, this calendar, the timeline, the budget, all this kind of things. The engagement manager or delivery lead will be working specifically with the SOW to make sure everything is in line. So this is why they're called the engagement manager, because they're specific in terms of working with that client and making sure that the project runs smoothly and make sure that the engagement is great. This is a completely different role than the project manager. However, this can be exactly the same role. It's not that common for the project manager and the engagement manager can be the exact same, but there are cases where they can be the same. So the project manager, you guys have probably heard this a lot about, is actually someone that really works with the team to make sure everything is running smoothly. So in this case, it's really focused on time, scope, and money. So the engagement manager and the project manager actually works with the client team, or specifically the client steering committee, which is essentially trying to make sure that everything's running on track. So you may start to hear a lot of metrics that are like, oh, this work stream is green and this work stream is red and this work stream is orange. This means that like how much of a risk are we going to be at in terms of actually going off track. And this could mean that like the project manager is also working with the client, but also working with the engagement manager to make sure they have a go to green plan, which is trying to basically put the plan back on track. The project manager is basically supposed to be the one that is trying to make sure everything's on track, but also try to be that good liaison between the actual team and the client, because you're always trying to be debating between time, scope, and money, like what is actually should we give up or what should we not, because most of the times the client may not always have the right expectations because they're not experienced in the field to know exactly what to expect. But then meanwhile, the delivery team can actually be the one like, oh, we need to do this, like this is a requirement, but the client doesn't have that disconnect, and the project manager is supposed to really be there to kind of build that bridge together. So then we have leads. So after the project manager, we have leads at specific work streams and the software. So for example, in this case with Workday, we have like a Workday platform implementation. This could mean like financials, which is what I'm in, HCM, human capital management, payroll, student. There's like so many products within Workday, and the same exact thing happens with like SAP or Oracle, or even when it comes to like outsourced work, when it comes to like data analytics, you may have specific teams working on programming or business analysis. You have specific teams and you have a lead to make sure that they are delivering what they need to deliver. Then you have the consult. This is actually what I've seen a lot of college students get confused. They're like, what do analysts do? Like you're getting hired, you're becoming like an analyst or an associate. There's like so many different types of roles out there. But when it comes to the team, everyone's a consultant. So this means that like even if you're an analyst or senior analyst or consultant by name, at least by role specifically, you're still a consultant. You're essentially someone from the consulting firm that's actually working with the team. So what this means is that like you as an analyst, you're not necessarily stuck to the name of analyst. You don't necessarily have to analyze. I know that's a little bit confusing because you're like, why am I analyst then? But really when it comes to consulting firms, they're actually using that to really just show a hierarchy and maybe even pay grade to see like, okay, what pay grade or what promotion you should be getting. But when it comes to the actual project team, you guys are all consultants, and you can even be an analyst and still be going to be project manager. If you're an analyst, you can still technically be a consultant or a lead. Actually, in my case, I'm actually the functional lead because there's only one person, and again, it depends on the type of project, in which I'll go into later. You're not really supposed to be named after like analyst. No one in the client team will actually go, oh, she's an analyst, so we're not going to really work with her because she's not a consultant. Yes, you are a consultant. You're really going to be working with the consulting team. Maybe internally, this is where we kind of fill out the hierarchy, because analysts tend to be a lot more inexperienced, and when you're inexperienced, you need to work with the leads to really try to make sure that you get things done. If you're an analyst, you need to work with the consultants, and then the consultants work with the leads to get things done. In this case, it's really just kind of like delegating work streams and delegating responsibilities. But in some cases, you can be an analyst and still be consultant or even a lead. It really depends on the actual structure of the project. And then lastly, this is something that a lot of people don't really know of if you're like so deep into the project, is that there's always going to be a sponsor. So it could be like an executive from the consulting firm, or it could be a managing director. They're really just here to try to make sure that the project is on track. So they're actually above the delivery lead or the engagement manager. They're trying to make sure that we don't lose this account. We're great with this. They work with quality assurance to make sure that it does reflect what everything the consulting firm is trying to do. So they're also technically, there's like a way to kind of balance everything out. You have the project manager, the delivery lead / engagement manager, and you also have the executive sponsor. So there's so many things out there. Really, there's going to be pretty confusing, but most consulting firms, like most Big Four or MBB or Accenture, they do follow this kind of process. And then you're always going to have these little one-off projects, like which, for example, where I was the lead. And you're going to have very specific kinds of projects out there where it's like very niche, very unique enhancements, where it's not going to be a full-blown project structure. So in this case, like the team is going to be very specific to like a whole implementation. If you're not in implementation, there's still going to be a project manager when it comes to like maybe you need to build a portal for a customer, or maybe you need to build a e-commerce platform. You're still gonna have a project manager, you're still gonna have an engagement manager, you're still gonna have an executive sponsor, and then you may have consultants that may be leads, or they may be analysts, or they're all those people are all mishmash together. That's the part where it could be a little bit confusing, but you're always gonna have those people on the top that they want to make sure that the project is a success. And lastly, what I did want to note is that this is how the project can be. However, this is not always going to be the types of teams that you get in technology consulting. You also need to realize that in technology consulting, it technically counts for outsourced IT. So this is actually something that my boyfriend did before Accenture, but it's really mostly where you have a third-party IT team or department for you that you may, like for example, if you're like a law firm, you most likely are not going to be hiring an IT team. So you're going to outsource it to a different organization. For them, they're actually just like, they're going to just send whoever can do it. It's like almost like freelance or contractor work. work, so you just send them out to do that. There's not going to be an actual engagement manager or project manager or consultant. They're just going to be a team of people that just do what they need to do. Just keep in mind, if you're interested in technology consulting, when you're not interested in the traditional sense of the consulting firms, there are still those options out there where you're specifically focusing on a scale or boutique firm, and there's always going to be those kind of work out there. So that was the actual typical team structure of a project. Hopefully that really helps clarify things out. I know a lot of people, like, in order to really know about this, you really need to be in the project itself. And again, it's always dynamic. You may have like the project or delivery lead can be the same exact person, or like the analyst can be the lead. There's so many things you can do out there. It really depends on if you have the resource and skill to really fulfill that role, then you will most likely be in that role, and you'll be surprised like what you can do. I've even had a friend that was like an entry level analyst and he ended up being project manager. But that's because that the skill that they needed was specifically to just kind of get the ball rolling, and it didn't necessarily need his skill in everything else. So if you have any questions about team structure, let me know down below in the comments. But also, if you are on a technology consulting project, let me know how different your team structure is. Make sure to check out my video here on exactly the types of projects out there that you can do, and that can clarify more about the types of projects out there, and that can clarify how the type of project can actually change the way that the team is structured. With that said, thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe. So actually, like, one of the things that I do at Accenture is that I'm office champion, which means that I'm actually organizing events for my business unit in the New York office at least. One of the events that I organized was Paint and Sip, and this is actually my boyfriend's painting. So that's why it's like kind of like all over the place and messy. I apologize if this was really distracting in my previous videos, but we're gonna put this in a corner you will never see, but we're gonna have a neon cat sign. I bought it from Etsy, so I'm just waiting for it so I can put it up here because this is really distracting. It's like, oh, I'm going to fulfill my dreams of being a crazy cat lady.